Zuby, welcome on the Blue Collar Bitcoin podcast. I just want to start as directly and specifically as I can to maybe piss off some woke folk here right off the bat and say, Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas to you too, man.
Yeah.
Are we not meant to say that anymore?
I don't know.
It depends,
crazy.
man. It gets really strange. I mean, you know, we're all living in this, we're all floating in the same water, and people get so weird about Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever it is. Like, just say it, man. It doesn't matter.
Do you know what's hilarious about that?
Everything?
No. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that are hilarious about it, the goofiness going on. But prior to last week, as we record this, I was actually in Dubai, UAE, for the previous 5 weeks. And Merry Christmas was everywhere.
Really?
Merry Christmas was everywhere. In an Islamic country, I'm talking every restaurant, every hotel. I was seeing Christmas displays. And when I say that they were playing Christmas music, I don't just mean they were playing like the secular Jingle All the Way stuff. I mean, Sweet Baby Jesus in the Manger type Christmas music was playing.
God incarnate.
In the hotel lobby, in restaurants and so on. So it's kind of funny to, be talking to guys in the US and me here sitting in the UK, and the concept of saying Merry Christmas to someone. You know, I just got my beard trimmed up before this, and the guys who did it were like all from like Kurdistan and Turkey and stuff. And they were all like, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And I'm like, so it's kind of funny how people have this trepidation around it when you have people who are not even Christians, where you can go to Muslim countries even, and they're like, yeah, Merry Christmas.
It's like we are unknowingly gaslighting each other from the other side without even, you know what I mean? Like, it's wild. And who really honestly would ever get offended by something like that? Like, even if you're not a Christian or, you know, a Muslim or whatever, like, it's clearly just good tidings. Like, you know, hope you have a good day, whatever. Like,
I have a question.
It's just hard to believe.
I have a question about this, because I see more people online talking about the concept that people are offended by other people saying Merry Christmas. I see that take much more than I see takes of people actually being offended by Merry Christmas. Does that make sense?
Totally.
I see the supposed reaction to this phenomenon more than I see the supposed phenomenon itself. I think over the course of maybe the last 5 years, I've seen a handful of tweets from weirdos with pronouns in their bio talking about, you know, don't wish me a Merry Christmas or whatever. But apart from like a handful of nobodies on Twitter, I don't think I've ever come across that sentiment.
I resonate with that. And here, you've said stuff before, Zuby, like it's this woke movement, whatever it is, however we're going to define it, oversensitivity, if we were to be nice, it's captured a lot of people, but it's captured a lot less people than many of us presume. And I think, like, I was thinking some about the incentives, because we're not going to spend the whole convo on this theme, but I think it is interesting and I think it's important. And I think it is, when and where appropriate, it's time to start pushing back a little bit. And I was thinking just about incentives. You know, we talk a ton about economics and finance and Bitcoin on here, but when you think about what drives behavior is incentives. Let's talk about this show. We're going to say some shit in the next hour that's probably going to piss some people off, but it's going to be a tiny percentage of our listenership. Let's say based on our data, we're probably going to have, let's say 25,000 people to listen to this conversation. I bet you like 8 of them are going to be offended, and one of those 8 people is going to email us. Maybe 2, maybe 3. We're going to get a DM and a couple emails, Josh, if passed. And here's where the incentive things come into play.
I'm going to try to get it to 5.
Yeah, and here's where the incentives come into play. I'm talking about us in particular. As the podcaster, as the content creator, now we're here. The only feedback we're getting is, hey, don't say this or that. The other week, we were talking some shit about midgets. By the way, we talk shit about everyone, maybe firemen the most prominently. But now
it wasn't even us talking about it. It was talking about a scene in Wolf of Wall Street where midgets are tossed at a target. So we're not even directly making fun of midgets. We're laughing at the concept of someone else having made fun of midgets. And this is the impetus to get us a flaming email, you know?
Well, I think even saying the word midget is going to trigger the most sensitive types. So you can't really win on that one. What
are we supposed to call them now? Do we know? Dwarfs?
Little people.
Oh, is dwarf? Is that like a
offensive? I mean, dwarfism is the technical term for the actual condition. But I think the most PC version is little people. But little people doesn't really capture the same thing because, you know, children are little people, short people are little people. It doesn't really mean that someone has dwarfism. So it's actually not very specific.
Yeah. I mean, you've basically busted down this wall, and I think we've done the best job we can. I mean, there are some limitations for us though, man. Like, we still are employed by a municipality. We're career firefighters, and this is part of the reason, if anyone's wondering, why we're so ardently committed to never telling you exactly where we work. Because who knows what kind of crazy person is going to kick it back when Josh and I talk shit about obese folks or whatever it is. I mean, we talk so much shit on here. To hammer my point home, though, it's like a message to people that are out there speaking. You can understand how this has gotten so out of control when you think about the incentives, because the feedback you're getting is from the people that are the most vocal, who tend to have the most extreme views and be the most easily offended. To turn this into a question, what was it for you that said, all right, enough is enough. I'm going to push past this boundary that a lot of people can't get over, and I'm just going to speak my mind?
Yeah, well, there's actually a very specific answer to that. So I started seeing stuff getting weird really about a decade ago. Someone could argue that, yeah, a lot of the roots of this stuff go back more than decades. They go back centuries. But in terms of my own relatively short lifetime, it was in the early to mid 2010s when I just started to see the USA and other Anglosphere countries in particular showing the early signs of what we now typically refer to as wokeness. At the time, people more called it, you remember the term SJWs, social justice warrior.
Mm-hmm.
That was more kind of how people were framing it. And I was really seeing the rise of these various ideologies and ideas. I would remember seeing when Milo Yiannopoulos was like a big figure and people were protesting him in the USA, and Ben Shapiro spoke at some college, I think it was Berkeley in the US, and protesters came and caused like $500,000 worth of damage. And then that flowed into the Brexit hype in the UK. And then you had the whole Trump hysteria in the USA, which is crazy to think that was 8 years ago.
Yeah,
8 years ago.
8 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. And then you had, the BLM becoming more prominent, the rise of critical race theory, then, of course, the whole trans movement, and just a lot of madness. And I was seeing all this, particularly with a keen eye, let's say from 2014 to 2017. I was really paying attention to it. I was listening to quite a lot of different podcasts, particularly in the USA. I remember coming across Jordan Peterson back in, I think it was, when did I first come across Jordan Peterson? I think it was 2015 or 2016. It was around the time that he was opposing the Bill C-16 in Canada. So I started following these people. I was listening to a lot of these conversations, having a lot of private conversations with family members and friends, just about a lot of the stuff that was going on. Now, to answer your question very specifically, of the moment that I noticed that it was really going too far and I realized how far it had gone, was when an acquaintance, somebody that I know who I was friends with on Facebook and had actually met in person, this individual was the student union president of one of the universities here in the UK. And he was, in today's parlance, super woke. At the time, we may have called him a social justice warrior. So I'd always see his public posts on Facebook, just, whether it's pro-LGBT or whether it's something about white privilege or this or that. And I just see it and kind of roll my eyes and ignore. And then he had a post, and this is what year is this? This is 2018. He had a post where it was something in relation to the University Debate Society. And he basically was playing the I believe in free speech, but I don't type of position. Very similar to the conversation I had with Piers Morgan not so long ago, which kind of blew up. And keep in mind, this is someone who's in a position of power at the university. And he basically said something along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase. He said something like, of course, I believe in free speech, and free speech is important for debates, but people shouldn't be allowed to say things that are hateful and have the potential to cause offense to other people. And I was
which is
like,
everything.
Wait. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, hang on. So I responded to the post just saying, like, I can't remember the wording, but I was very polite. I'm always polite. But I basically was explaining to him that his position didn't make sense, and you can't say you support free speech, but you don't support things that are potentially offensive. Especially keep in mind, this is in the context of a debate society, right? And how are you going to have any how are you going to have any debate on any topic without risking someone potentially being offended? So anyway, we have this whole public back and forth on Facebook. And long story short, by the end of the conversation, and keep in mind, in this conversation, I have not voiced any of my own personal beliefs or positions, but he came to the conclusion, and he said this. I think I remember the quote directly. He wrote, "People like Zuby are dangerous and have ideas that can get people killed. I don't think that people like him should be allowed on university campuses."
Wow.
So I was like, okay, right. This person thinks that I, a very polite, moderated, friendly person, this individual who's in this position thinks that someone like myself, in his words, should not be allowed on a university campus. So he's basically saying like a normal person is too extreme and too radical to even be on a university campus. And I graduated from university in 2007. And when I was in university, it wasn't like this. Yeah. Right. It wasn't like this. And so I'd been seeing all this stuff over the years, but that was the moment for me where I was like, whoa, this is going really far. And this is not just something unique to the USA or Canada. This has come over the pond, and this seems to be infecting the entire Anglosphere and much of the Western world. So unknowingly to him, for me, that was like the moment where I just started using my social media platform, and Twitter in particular, simply to share more of my thoughts and ideas. I've always been sharing some of my thoughts and ideas through my music. I've had social media for I've been on social media for half of my life at this point, which is pretty crazy. I'd been on Twitter since 2009, but really I was just using it as a vehicle for my music. I was always careful to like not put out too many thoughts or ideas on society, culture, politics, religion, whatever it is. Not even really out of fear or worry about being, quote unquote canceled, but just like I didn't really think it was my place. And I also didn't think that, like to this day, I think that 90% of the things I say should be common sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I often find myself writing posts and saying things in podcasts and saying things in videos. And I'm like, why do I even have to say this? Right. So, like I can write a tweet saying that, I don't know, it's bad to judge people based on their skin color. Right. Or that, white people are not inherently racist, or men and women are actually different. Or men shouldn't compete in female sports. And if I said any of those things 10 years ago, I wouldn't have gotten a reaction. And now, like, those are viral posts.
Exactly.
Right? Those are
what comes to mind when you say that. And that was where I was going to go with this next, which is, it's almost like in that old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Like, you're just saying the obvious in a very eloquent way that strikes people
just
as
called Zuby.
Oh my God, that's
Zuby,
so.
you got one eye. Yeah.
But it is so prescient to understand that, like, in the land of crazy, being somewhat normal and eloquent about the way you say it and doing it in a way that's cordial, but still get your point across, is a fucking amazing tactic to use, because people are afraid to just say what they really think because they're going to get canceled. They're going to lose their job. They're going to get attacked on the campus. I mean, liberal arts colleges and universities are supposed to be the place for freedom of ideas and to actually have a common sense, like, argument in a formalized way. If we can't do that on these campuses and these universities, like, it is really, really dark days for just freedom of thought and freedom of speech. And I was watching.
Can I jump?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I jump in there quickly? Because I think I'm not into language policing, but I think that language is important.
Agreed.
And I think it's important to not say can't when you mean should or won't. I actually get annoyed when people tell me that they can't do things that they can, but just refuse to. Right? When people are like, oh, I can't speak my mind, or I can't do this, or I can't. I'm like, no, you can. Right? And billions of people out there do. You're coming up with an excuse for one's own cowardice, right? It's like, no, you can do it. The probability that you're going to lose your job because you said there's two genders, or because you voted for Trump, or because you think men shouldn't compete in women's sports, it's not zero, depending on where you work. But I have two takes on that. Number one, if you're working in a place that would fire you for saying that,
for saying the obvious,
vote right, or simply saying, like, no one's going to fire you for saying you voted for Biden or saying you voted for Hillary. So why should there be places that fire you for saying you voted for Trump? Like, it's pretty much half the country voted one way, half of them voted the other way. Like, how can it be that you hold a position that half of the country does, and voicing it puts your job at risk? So I think people need to, I feel the same with all the stuff that happened, when they were doing the vax mandates and pushing the clot shots on people and whatever, and people, I was forced into this. I was like, look, man, unless someone's put a gun to your head, pretty much everything's a choice. And I recognize that choices can be, coercion is real.
Right.
And some people are in different positions. So I'm not trying to minimize that. But when people are like, oh, I was forced to do that, I can't speak, or I was forced to get the jab, or I was like, no, you weren't. Like, those were choices. Those were choices. And we know that because, like, there's millions and millions and millions of people out there who are in a very similar position to the person who's telling me this, who did resist. And you know what? Some people did get fired. Some people did have to deal with some nonsense. Some people did that, but it's all a choice, man. It's all a choice. So I think people need to not say that they can't do things, right? If someone's at university or school or in a workplace and they're like, oh, I can't speak on this, or I can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you can. And I can guarantee you there's people in your workplace or in your university or whatever who are speaking it and are being courageous. So yeah, people get mad when I use the term cowardice, but that's what it is. So I think
you nailed it.
I don't want to validate people's excuses.
When you were on Peers, I mean, a bunch of different times, I watched a bunch of these different times you were on there, but you were with a woman named Rhonda. I looked it up. It was Rhonda Roan Adrian, and you guys had this bit of a spat back and forth about the definition of men versus women, right? And she was very hung up on, like, the legality aspect of it. Like, well, no, legally in the UK, men can be women and women can be men. And you were you're almost like crossing each other in two ships in the night, where you're saying, no, biologically, men are men and women are women. There's no way you change chromosomes, and there's no way you change the biological factors here. And she's arguing for the legal primary aspects of it. But the bottom line is, like, physical reality is physical reality. And when people can't seem to grasp that, and they want to hang on to these, like, human constructs of, like, human laws are fallible and human laws are not reality. They are just simply a construct of our imagination. But there is a reality out there somewhere. There's a baseline reality. And it just blows my mind. And I could see you reeling with, like, how do you even communicate with somebody who doesn't want to see eye to eye because they just have an agenda they're trying to push here, but they won't idealize and they won't actually see the ground floor. How do you, when you do have these conversations in places where you don't have a 2-minute segment to try to get to this, have you found any fundamental way that you can break through that barrier that these people seem to construct?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is that they don't believe themselves. They know the truth. There's no one out there who genuinely doesn't know the difference between a man and a woman. There's nobody who would struggle to determine what pronouns.
Having to say that is so insane that people like 10, 20, 30 years ago would be like, what are we doing here? Like, this is just
look, there are ideologues out there, but most people are just cowards. It comes back to the same thing I was saying before, right? She knows the truth. Right? Yeah. She knows the truth. She's a woman, right? She's not just a woman, she's a mother. Like, I know a little bit about her, right? She knows darn well what a woman is, right? She's older than me. She's been a woman longer than I've been alive, right? She knows the difference between male and female, but for either the sake of TV or for the sake of not wanting to draw the ire of trans activists, who are some of the worst people in the entire world, I'm dead serious. These are
I'm only laughing because of the amount of, like, hate that's going to come out of that statement.
Have any like, if someone doesn't believe that statement, go deal with trans activists. I didn't say transgender people, I said the activists.
Yes, which I understand.
Most of them are not even transgender, by the way, right? Like, BLM are bad. I think the trans activists are even worse. So that's all it is, man. It all comes down to cowardice. Everyone knows that everyone knows what a man is, everyone knows what a woman is. There's no one who genuinely believes that males can get pregnant. There's no one who genuinely believes that females and males are physically equivalent and have the same strength and speed and so on. There's just a bunch of people who are pathetically cowardly. And
I think that goes back to like, we have a tendency as human beings, and most animals do, we're social creatures, and we have a tendency to kind of go with the herd, right? Because if you're a standout person in a prominent avenue, I mean, Nazi Germany is an extreme example of this, but if you were a standout person, you were going to get hit with a hammer. And
for sure.
You know what I mean? It's a survival instinct for a lot of people. Cowardice is a survival strategy. And
that's back to the incentive. That's back to the incentives, dude. I mean, a lot, especially the way that culture's moving, the most vocal and upfront people are reliant on very centralized entities to get their content out. If we're go back to the content creation, there's a deep-seated, understandable, viable fear of, fuck, YouTube's going to kick me off here if I say X or Y, right? It's back to the whole incentives thing. Everybody wants to fall in line, but it's more than that. It's people want to put food on the table and keep whatever momentum going that they've had. And I'm not using that as an excuse for people not standing up for what they actually think is true. I'm just saying it makes sense to me culturally why this has gotten so out of control.
Yeah, it's not hard to understand. I don't struggle to understand it at all. This is the way humanity has always been. There's always been more followers than there are leaders, and there always will be. There's always been more cowards than there are people with courage. I think the thing that disappoints me with this is when we're talking about courage here, we're talking about such a low bar. One of the things I get recognized in public quite a lot these days in different cities, different countries. And one of the things that I receive, the two compliments I probably get the most are, number one, people thanking me for helping to keep them sane. And the other one is people thanking / congratulating me for my courage. And that makes me feel two types of ways. On one hand, I'm flattered and I'll say, thank you. On the other, I'm like, how has the bar for courage fallen so short, fallen so low, that me saying basic things on Twitter and on podcasts and on videos and on stages and whatever, or in my music, that this is now the bar for courage, right? Courage used to mean like risking your life, right? I look at people, you guys are firefighters, right? Running into a freaking burning building, that's courageous, right? Running across a battlefield where you've got people with landmines and people are shooting at you and trying to blow you up and whatever. Trench warfare, being in the military, like that is courage. Police officers going in and fighting like criminals and drug gangs and stuff like that, right? Putting their bodies on the line. All of these things are courageous, right? A lifeguard who's like diving into choppy water to say, like, there's a lot of stuff that I see and I'm like, man, that is courageous. And not only is it courageous, but I'm like, I wouldn't want to be in the military. I wouldn't want to be a police officer. Fireman, maybe I could do. But like I look at some jobs and things that people, but I look at the things some people are doing, men in particular, right? Or just the guys who climb these like the telephone poles to do repair, just stuff, right? Or even the guys who do the window cleaning on skyscrapers.
Oh yeah, it's
badass,
right? I'm just like, to me, I'm like, that is courageous. Yeah. I'm like, bro, I just say things on the internet and get paid well for it.
I think that is also what people appreciate, that kind of humility, though. Like to say, like you talked to Xavier Miller. I was listening to that this morning on my drive home. And one of the things you were talking about meeting Musk and about the humility that you recognized in him, even though he's a guy who has created, I don't even know, 6, 8 different hyper successful companies. Arguably, not even arguably, the most successful guy in the world. By monetary quantitatively, he definitely is.
Yeah.
Yet the guy's got humility. He's got a public persona, which people, perceive. I'm sure he's different in person than he is on Twitter and any other way that you view him. But having that humility, having the ability to recognize, like, I'm also a clown. Like Dan and I sit on here, we talk a lot of shit about things that, we have a pretty good understanding about our little wheelhouse of things, but I think we're fairly humble dudes who understand that our view of reality and our grasp of it is incredibly narrow.
Tiny
compared to what is out there. And the more you actually understand about the world, the more you appreciate that you don't really know. And if you are a person who you should be a person that strives to have the humility to recognize that you really don't know a lot about much. And I that is another thing I think that people look at you and they see the humility, and that also engenders the appreciation that they have for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Look, I think I said this on Twitter the other day. There's various sort of mantras that I live by. But one thing is that I believe that you can learn from everybody. Not only do I believe that you can learn from everybody, and I don't know if this is explicitly true. This might be a bit of exaggeration, but I assume that everybody is superior to me in some way.
Folks, when a fellow firefighter, family member, or friend asks us where we buy Bitcoin, we point them to Swan. It's the place Josh and I have dollar cost averaged into Bitcoin for years. At Swan Bitcoin, you can set up automated Bitcoin savings plans as well as execute instant purchases. They serve clients of any size, from firefighters to institutional investors, and an account is startlingly easy to set up. I've watched a fireman do it on a smartphone while sitting in a recliner in less than 7 minutes. Swan also offers Bitcoin IRAs. You can start or roll over a traditional or Roth IRA with enterprise-grade custody, attentive service, easy onboarding, and transparent fees.
Have you had the intention to mine Bitcoin but thought that the equipment is too expensive or that running your own miner might be a bit too technical? Maybe you thought it would be cool, but the cost of electricity where you live makes it pointless. With HeatBit, you can kill 3 birds with 1 stone. It's a Bitcoin miner, a heater, and an air purifier all in one. It's a plug-and-play device that could not be simpler to operate. It has the latest 5nm chips to make it one of the most efficient Bitcoin miners in the world. On average, the HeatBit Mini pays for 70% of the electricity it uses. The HeatBit Mini also operates quietly. Good luck selling the idea to your wife that you're going to plug in Bitcoin miners in your basement that operate at the volume of a lawnmower. Not going to happen. HeatBit operates silently while keeping your significant other warm and cozy. HeatBit cares about your marriage. So, if you want to mine Bitcoin and remain married, order a HeatBit Mini and keep warm while it pays for its own electricity bill. Visit heatbit.com and use code BCB for 5% off a HeatBit Mini.
That's a good quote. Yeah, 100%.
Right? Every single person I come across, I assume, okay, there is something. I may not know what it is. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's not so obvious, but there is something that they know better than I do, or their skill some skill they have that I don't have. There's some.
The first thing you do is check their bulge, right? You're like, oh yeah, he's not superior to me there for sure. All right, we can move on past that. Yeah.
That's why, like, when we start these shows, Zuby, I try to do like an accidental, like I'm standing up, like so someone catches a quick glance of the shroom and they're like, oh wow, this dude's hung. All right, let's get going here.
Oh my gosh,
we always have to, it always goes back to dick jokes in the end on this show. Yeah. So
I wasn't quite.
Sorry to digress there for a moment.
Yeah, it's all good, man. But I think that's an essential part of humility. And it's very funny because I'm one of those people, and I've had this for a long time, because I've now been to some degree in the public eye for approaching 20 years at this point because of my music. And it's funny because people who know me and have interacted with me often comment on my humility. But then a lot of people who don't know me, or people who don't like me or don't like my message or whatever, they often think that I'm arrogant, or that I'm cocky, or I'm I think I'm superior to people, which is very, very far from the truth, right? They're just kind of projecting what they would like to believe about you, right? I don't walk around assuming that I'm like better than everyone, or I'm superior to people or whatever. In fact, I would not be able to even do on multiple levels. If I look at my journey and I look at what I do every day and what I've been doing every day for over 15 years, it would not be possible if I even had that mentality. I mean, I spent more than a decade of my life selling my CDs on the street, right? That was my income source, right? I would just stand outside, travel to different cities, go to the pedestrianized high street, and talk to hundreds of people every day and stop them, interrupt their day, play them my music, and sell my CDs. That was how I made my money. Eventually, I started doing it in shopping malls. I did it for 4 years in shopping malls before things started to take off a little bit more, right? I've spoken to over 500,000 people in real life, and almost nobody could make that claim and be honest, right? I've spoken to a ridiculous number of people. And you can't do that if you are prideful and arrogant, right? If the way I interact with people on social media, like the fact that I even still reply, like people are, let's be honest, most people who have a following my size don't reply to people.
No. Yeah. Dude, we struggle to reply to people. We have 1/100th. Wait, yeah, we have 1/100th the number of followers you have, and the two of us struggle to reply to people, even with whatever 11,000 followers or whatever. I can't imagine the riffraff that ensues when you have 1 million followers on Twitter.
Yeah, dude, it's nuts. And then it's another million. It's another million across the other platforms, right? And look, I can't reply to everything, and I don't want to reply to everything. But like, I can be having a conversation with someone, and in the conversation, they're like accusing me of being arrogant. I'm like, bro, if I were arrogant, no offense, but I wouldn't be having a conversation with a guy with 52 followers. I would just be like, nah, you're beneath me. You're not even worth my time. But like, and look, sometimes I get caught up in like, people say don't feed the trolls. Sometimes people are like, why are you even having a convo? But the thing is, with my mission and with my message, it's like,
trolls. Sorry. Sorry.
Do you know what it is that like, do you know something I've really discovered over the years of me just being on my mission and on my grind with my music and message and everything else that I do, is that I find that one of the biggest points of contention between, look, firstly, 99% of people who know me do like and do appreciate me, but if millions of people know you and 1% dislike you, then it's still a lot of people who dislike you.
Yeah.
And they can be very, very vocal about it, as I'm sure you guys have realized. One of the biggest points of contention is I have actually found that I believe in them more than they believe in themselves. If I look at the kind of people who are like haters, and who are like kind of consistent haters on my stuff, and I kind of like look at their mindset and see what they're saying, I'm like, the problem here is that I think that you can be more than you are, and you don't believe it, and that's like massively upsetting you. And look, I don't know, I can't psychoanalyze everyone. I don't know everyone's history and their relationship with their parents and other people or whatever, but I'm like, okay, like this is a deeply unhappy person who has very low self-esteem and who is look, if you're going around the internet every day and you're just trying to like tear down other people and you're just attacking like people who haven't done anything to you, right? People who've never, they don't even know you, and you're just going and leaving nasty comments and you're trying to diss them and pull them down or whatever. I'm sorry, but there's nobody who is happy and successful who behaves like that.
Yeah.
And I look at that, and on one hand, I find it frustrating, but on the other, I'm just like, man, you could be using your energy and your time so much better, right? Like I'm not trying to be someone's father here, but I'm just like, look, this is the problem, right? I can just be living my life and showing people what I'm doing and putting out my messages, and I can put up like the most positive thing, like something that not contentious at all, not controversial, and you still get comments that are like people hating. And I'm just like, what if you took that time and that energy and you just dedicated it to anything useful, like anything useful? Go to the gym, work on a project, learn a new language, like work on a skill, go and whatever it is, right? Like, why are you sitting here trying to tear me down? I haven't wronged you. In fact, this was a post that was, the goal of this post was actually to encourage you and to like give you a little bit of inspiration. And now you're here like calling me names because you don't like the fact that I'm traveling in a foreign country, or I'm standing in a way you don't like, or guys, I get criticized for smiling too much.
People talk shit about your smile. I've noticed that. Yeah.
I haven't even seen that one.
I have noticed that. I don't get it, but they do.
Stop looking so fucking happy. Jesus Christ.
But this is literally my point. Like, can you imagine like someone posts a picture of them like smiling on the online, and your life and mentality is in such a state that it upsets you?
Well,
and you criticize the person for smiling. Like, that's nutty to me.
It's crazy. And here's the fact of the matter, at least based on my perception. If I was to think about the people in my life that I view as the most successful, if we just go many of them, most of them are relentlessly optimistic, forward-thinking, and uplifting individuals. And that's there are exceptions to that rule, but successful people don't get hung up pulling bullshit weeds in the backyard. They think big picture. It's easy to hate. It's hard to create, man. And that's what social media has allowed for. It's a beautiful thing in so many different ways, but it gives a massive platform to huge losers. We have a loser platform unlike the world has ever seen before right now. If you are a basement dwelling, Cheeto eating, negative producing human being, you can sit on one of these magic boxes and just talk shit and nonsense all day long. And those are the people, once again, that if you are out there hustling, putting your neck out there, you're going to hear from the most.
Yeah, it's kind of nutty. And it's also funny because I'm blessed to have been in a position now where over the past 5 years, I have met a ridiculous number of people who I massively admire and respect and look up to. I've met some of the most, successful people who are out there. And not just only have I met them, but like they like me, right? Like they encourage me. I message them, like we talk, whether it's Elon, whether it's Joe Rogan, whether it's Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, like tons of people, right? There's even people who, I won't even, I mean, some of them I don't know. They're not so public, but these are guys like founders of multi-billion-dollar companies who I've like met and hung out with and had dinner with and stuff just because like they like what I'm doing. Like I didn't even reach out to them. They messaged me and were like, "Oh, I see you're in my city. Like, why don't we go out for dinner?" And I'm like, I see the name and I'm like, holy crap. Like, I don't know what I'm doing that's even like drawn you to me. So those people don't hate on me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to tug on that string about mindset just a little bit because I also think that's incredibly important. I went through a period of time, maybe a decade ago, when I was really into like reading business oriented, like self-help books. And a lot of them, the theme throughout the book is mindset, like having this, I guess a good example of a way to demonstrate it is like a lot of people have this mindset that there's only a certain set piece of pie. And if someone else is getting more, that means that I'm automatically getting less. Like my size is shrinking. Whereas the abundance mindset is more along the lines of the pie is growing. Like the world is getting more wealthy. There's plenty for me. All I have to do is understand that. And that mind shift change from like someone else succeeding means I'm failing to this thing is getting bigger. I can get a bigger piece, even if someone else is getting a bigger piece. And the mentality shift there is huge in my view. And I think you would agree with that. And I didn't know that you'd been selling CDs on, on street corners or wherever out in public for such a long period of time. So mindset is a huge factor there. You can't have a negative mindset and do that for that period of time. I mean, I don't know how successful it was. I'm sure in the beginning it was very slow growing, very slow going. How did you keep that positive mindset throughout that? I think this is very important for people to kind of drink this in, because if you don't have the ability to fail for years, you're not going to, unless you're just an extremely lucky person, you are not going to just hit it overnight. Nobody, very, very rarely, anyone hits it overnight. So tell us a bit about the mindset that got you through the years of slow rowing before you hit the exponential and made it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you say about, the scarcity versus abundance mindset is very real. And just before answering that, I think part of the reason why that's ingrained in people is obviously there's a push from various ideologies for that. But I think because there are some things in life that are zero sum. And so I think as humans, maybe this is just like a failure of our brains as animals. We recognize that, some things are zero sum. So therefore everything is zero sum, right? If we order a pizza between the four of us and it's cut into 8 slices and I take 5 of them, then I have taken more than my fair share and you have a right to be kind of annoyed with me. And so people apply that template to the economy and to lots of other things, to the dating market even, or the marriage market, whatever. And it's like, oh, that guy has a hot girlfriend, so I'm going to hate on him, or that guy has something I want and I don't have it. So I think that's why people have it. But moving on to answer your question about the mindset of maintaining. Wow, it's a brilliant question. And I think I'll give quite a few different things here. I'm going to kind of put myself back in the mindset of when I was doing that. I think the first and deepest thing is knowing what my North Star goal was and is, right? When I was 18, I made a decision that I was going to use my voice to positively inspire and impact over 1 million people. That's why I became a rapper. That's why I left my corporate job, because I was like, there is no way I can inspire and impact 1 million people sitting at this desk for 5 days a week, right? It's just not possible. So that was my goal. I thought it was going to happen just through my music as a rapper. And over time, obviously, additional things got added to it. So every day that I was out there on the street, I had in the back of my mind okay, this is my overall goal. And then with that, downstream of that is the why, right? Why am I standing out here? Especially as an Oxford University graduate who could be doing all of these other things and earning way more money in other fields.
Right.
I was like, okay, this is my why. So as long as you know why you're doing something, I think it's easy to continue doing it. I think a big problem with a lot of people, whether it's pursuing a fitness goal or something in their career or something in their relationship, anything that takes effort, if you don't know why you're doing it, then it's really hard to stay motivated. But if you do know that why, you don't really need to rely on motivation. You just form the habit and you just keep on going. In terms of the more sort of practical aspects day to day, I also had the mentality that every no brings you closer to a yes. So if you do any type of sales, any type of promotion, if you're a single man and you're out there trying to approach women or find a girlfriend or find a wife, you're always going to get more no's than yeses, right? There's no sales job where you're going to get more yeses than you get no's, right? Maybe someone out there can think of some exception, but I struggle to think of any legitimate sales job where you're going to be getting more yeses than you get no's. So you just know, look, every no is bringing me closer to a yes. I know, okay, for every 7 to 10 people that I talk to, I'm going to sell 1 CD. So if I want to sell 30 CDs in a day, I'm like, okay, I got to talk to maybe it might be 250 to 400 people, depending on my hit rate that day. And so I expect people to say no, right? But it's like, cool, I talked to 10 people. There's a high probability that one of those 10 people is going to buy something. And then you also get the positive reinforcement, right? If you were going to the gym and training and you never saw any progress, it would actually be pretty hard to stay motivated. But it's easy to stay motivated when you're like, oh, hey, I've gotten a little bit stronger. I can run a little bit further. I can do a couple more reps than I could do last time. Hey, look, my personal best just went up, whatever it is. So you can have neutral to nothing happening for a long time, but then you just get a little bit of positive reinforcement. And that validates why you're out there. And I'll tell you what, at the end of every day, do you know what I remembered?
The wins.
Do you know what I remembered and what I didn't remember? I'd remember how many CDs I sold. I'd never remember how many people said no.
Right.
I'd be like, that was an amazing day. I just sold 45 CDs in 6 hours.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, 300 people said no to me. It was like, no, 45 people said yes and bought. And those are now potential fans who can now take that CD home and listen to my music. And hopefully they'll enjoy it and they'll get some positivity from it and some motivation. Maybe later down the line, they'll come to a show, they'll buy a t-shirt, whatever it is. So that's all it is. And then I think with what I do now, whether this is podcasting, whether this is books, whether it's fitness stuff, social media stuff, public speaking, whatever it is, it's all the same thing. Like, to me, it's just different formats
for sure
of the same idea. So that was the mindset for me to be able to keep going.
I think it's also, just to add to that just a bit, comparing yourself to yourself. Because if you're on, if your goal is to be more fit, if you're comparing yourself to Arnold Schwarzenegger at his peak when you just started, like, you're going to make yourself miserable. If you set yourself realistic goals that you can attain in say the first 6 months, you see that, you see that pendulum moving, you get motivated by that. And then you can kind of move up your target from there. Like, if you decided you're going to sell 1 million CDs in the first year, like, you just have an unrealistic goal. I mean, although that can create a mindset over like, how do I achieve that goal? You still need to have some incremental, realistic goals to keep you motivated. Dan and I are paramedics. We see people day in and day out who have one major concern: insurance. They either have no insurance or they have some inadequate insurance that doesn't cover a thing, while sticking them with a huge premium. They're worried about the cost of the ambulance and the hospital. Sometimes they refuse to be transported to the hospital for urgent needed care just because they don't have insurance. This is where Crowd Health comes in. Crowd Health is not health insurance. It's better. You contribute every month to a fund that covers you and assists other members in need. If you ever have a significant health issue, you can get crowdfunded. You pay the first $500 and then the community will step in to help you out. Crowd Health will negotiate on your behalf to obtain the best price possible. If you're sick of overpriced and underperforming insurance companies, try Crowd Health. Support humans, not giant healthcare corporations. You can try it starting at $99 per month for the first 6 months if you use code BLUE. That's code BLUE. Have you been paying attention the last few years? If so, you know one thing. Not your keys, not your coins. This is a quaint saying, but it's real. If you're not holding your seed keys, you have a Bitcoin IOU, not Bitcoin. CoinKite is the maker of the Cold Card Mark IV. This is the industry standard for holding the keys to your Bitcoin. Holding your keys should not be intimidating, and it isn't. The Mark IV makes this an incredibly simple process. You could be a degenerate firefighter and hold your own keys. That's how simple it is. If you want to create a more complex setup, the Cold Card Mark IV has you covered there as well. You can create a multi-sig using a cold card, a tap signer, and even the upcoming Q1. Speaking of the Q1, if you want to have every bell and whistle and give yourself no boundaries as far as interacting with Bitcoin is concerned, the Q1 is your signing device. CoinKite makes some of the most sought-after gear in Bitcoin. The block clock, seed plates, the open dime, and the Sats card. Everything you need to secure your Bitcoin. Click on the link in our show notes to get discounts at the CoinKite store or use code BCB for 5% off the Mark IV.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll tell you another very important part of it as well, which is enjoying the process. Yeah. Genuinely enjoying it, right? While I was out there, look, of course, I don't think that, there's in any job, in any career, in any endeavor, there's going to be times when it's easier and more fun. And there's going to be times where it kind of sucks and you're not really enjoying it. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it, man. Like, I'm an extrovert. I love human beings. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I love traveling to different cities and countries and whatever. So, I mean, dude, I've been to like pretty much every single city in the UK, whether you're talking Scotland, Wales, England, or actually, I haven't been to Northern Ireland. I even went to Germany to sell my CDs. I've sold my CDs in Budapest before. Like, I've had the opportunity to like travel to so many places. And dude, in the course of selling tens of thousands of albums, do you know how many freaking awesome people that I met? Yeah, sure. I met some jerks too. Yeah. Right. I met some jerks, but I met so many amazing, awesome, fun people, right? Like, I'd just be out there on the street and every day was like an adventure. I'd literally get in my van or on the train, go to some random city, right? Come out, find the high street. I normally get out there around 11 a.m. or noon, right? As the shoppers are, as it's getting busier. And I don't know who I'm going to meet that day. I don't know like what's going to happen. I don't know what experience. And on most days, right, you just meet some like fascinating people. Yes. And people, guys from all over the world. I'm talking groups. Like, sometimes it's a group, sometimes it's a couple, sometimes it's an individual person. I've had situations where, like, I don't know, you approach one group and the next thing you do, you're surrounded by like 25 teenagers from France and you're speaking to them in French and they're asking you to freestyle and you're rapping for them. And then they're all taking photos and then they buy like freaking 15 CDs at once and you're like signing them all. And then other people are like, oh, who's this guy? What's going on? And then other people like start getting interested because they're seeing you. Like, I've had
a Zuby feeding frenzy is what you just described.
Dude, I had some crazy ones. I had one day where like, I went and I sold every single CD in my backpack off the first approach.
Fucking A. So I just went for it.
I approached a group of five kids from France, like maybe 14, 15 years old. And they were part of a bigger group. So I approached them in English. They didn't speak English, so I spoke to them in French. And they're like, first of all, they're like hype, like, oh my gosh, he speaks French, right? And they're like super hype. And like they were like big hip hop fans, right? So they were listening to the music and they're like jamming out to it. And then like they see some of their friends and they're like they call their friends over, right? And so they're all like, oh, like, like they're going crazy. They're like, hey, we just met this rapper, and his music is actually good. And the next thing, like over time, like I end up with a group of, I don't know, 40 like 40 French kids, and they're literally like just handing, like, throw, almost like just everyone wants a CD, right? Like, yeah. And I ran out. Like, I was literally like, oh my gosh, I don't even, and this is after traveling 2 hours to get to the city, and I've just run out of CDs in the first 20 minutes of being there. And I was like, wow, that was an amazing day, but I'm also kind of mad that I didn't bring.
They didn't bring more, yeah.
That I didn't bring more.
It's like going on a hunting trip and taking down the prized elk in the first like 20 minutes. You're like, fuck, now what am I going to do in the mountains for 4 days?
Yeah.
The other point I wanted, like, on these themes we've been talking about, and I'm going to steal something Josh mentioned before we talk, and he said this before, but I think it applies to you perfectly, and we need to get it in here, is just the myth of the overnight success. Like hearing you light up about hustling on street corners. People think, oh, Zuby popped off in whenever they became aware of you. We said before you came on here, I first found out about you when you were on Joe Rogan. Well, you were hustling for fucking decades before that. And that's true of any successful project. I mean, even our little 3-year project here, a lot of people are just finding out about us now, but we were here for 2 years before people really started to know anything about this podcast, even in our tiny little niche this last year. It's just, you have to be sowing seeds and hustling for a long period of time. And I think a lot of sort of, ADHD mindset is, I'm going to invest in this thing for a month or 2 months. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to jump to the next thing. And your story just so profoundly contradicts that. And so the same is true of many successful trajectories of it takes years of sowing seeds before legitimate crops grow. And staying power is absolutely essential in any sphere where you want to be successful.
Oh, yeah. Well, isn't it something like 80% plus of podcasts never get past the 4th episode or something like that?
Yeah,
probably.
Dude, and that's how it is in so many endeavors. And this is why, by the way, I think it's important when I do a lot of interviews. And I think it's important for me to often retell my story, because the truth is 99% of people who are aware of me discovered me in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware of that, right? 99% of my audience came in the last 5 years. And so the 12, 13 years before that is often overlooked, right? If I've had people be like, oh, he's just big because he got on Joe Rogan. It's like, how do you think I got on Joe Rogan?
Yeah,
right?
Joe Rogan doesn't just allow, you don't just sell CDs on the street corner and get on Joe Rogan.
Spins a wheel of 80 million people. All right, which guy's coming on here next? John Smirgamoff. All right, bring him on here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, right? And of course, one of the things that put me on a lot of people's radar was, when I broke the British women's deadlift record after, saying I identified as a woman.
That was hilarious.
And I think that, thank you very much.
Legendary.
By the way, I just realized that because I was looking at that post again last night, and I was like, how much weight did he actually lift? Because I never looked into it. And I was like, holy fuck, that was 525 pounds, right?
Be awesome if you
looked
at
it.
It
Fucking shit ton to deadlift.
It would also be awesome if he was full of shit, and you're like, wait, what? There's 190 on there?
They were actually foam. They were actually those foam plates people put on.
It was actually pretty light, man. I could have eight rep that. But the thing, do you know what I love about that tweet, which I think there's an underlying message to it, which sums up and ties together a point that we've been making a lot on this podcast. Because I've had people, again, the haters, the critics, whatever, people who want to pretend, that was just kind of a fluke viral moment or whatever, right? Like, oh, he just did this thing and all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, if it's that easy, you go do it.
Exactly.
You go do it. Go lift that weight.
Yeah.
Do you know how long it took? Do you know how long it took me to be able to lift that? Isn't that the perfect analogy?
It is.
So it sure is. Yeah.
It's like if it's so easy, it's just like, okay, cool. Go and replicate it. And 99.9% of people cannot, because they haven't actually done the training to lift it.
I would be willing to bet that 0% of the people that would criticize you for that post could lift that weight. That's serious. There is not a single person who has put in enough work to deadlift 525 pounds that would give that any kind of shade. Because that takes a lot of work. Even for I'm a 6'1", 215-pound dude. Putting up that kind of weight,
he's an animal. Josh
I don't think I would be able to do it, honestly. I'm not, deadlift isn't my forte, and 400 pounds is it for me. I'm good. I tap out at 400.
Wait,
606 was my PB.
Jesus.
I wouldn't be able to. Yeah, I did 606 at 183 pounds.
That's impressive.
That's a good chunk of iron right there.
I wouldn't put that up today. I wouldn't put that up right now, but yeah.
On the topic of that post, and I think I have your timeline correct, but you really kind of exploded based on, I think, what you've said in 2019. You had a solid following. I don't know what the catalysts were, but we're talking about 4 years. You've gone from, if we were just to kind of track your life, right? You walking around an airport, you in a public place, you've gone from obscure to noticed, especially in certain contexts. And I'm going to take this a slightly different angle than you might expect. I'm not going to just backhand you and stroke you off too hard here. I want to dig into what parts of your personality and integrity have you really needed to guard? What have the challenges been of, for all practical purposes, becoming famous over a 4-year time period? Back to the humility thing earlier, you're a clown just like the two of us. You're a regular dude, and people recognize you. They care about you all of a sudden. This is a transition to undergo, dude. I want to hear about what it's been like to go through this transition the last 4 years.
The word transition made me chuckle.
He loves that word. One of Dan's favorite words.
I identify as a famous person, Josh, by the way.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, I think the first thing to say is, although it seems fast, and it has been in the last couple of years, it's been really a slow process. So all through my 20s, from my late teens all through my 20s, it was, the volume dial going up very slowly. Like in the UK particularly, I mean, I've been getting recognized in public since I was like 19, right? Not on like a massive scale, but I've had my niche.
It was the bulge, right? That's why people were recognizing it.
Yeah. So I've had my niche following, right? In through my music and all my endeavors and talking to so many people, right? And I had a social media presence. It wasn't as big, but I had tens of thousands of followers.
Yep.
I had over 50,000 followers by 2018. So I think one part of it is that because it's been slow, I've had time to, it's not like, okay, you take a 20-year-old or even a 30-year-old and you suddenly make them famous, or they're suddenly getting recognized or whatever, and they don't know how to deal with it. Like they've had no practice, whatever. I had a lot of practice before stuff started to pop off more. So that helps in various ways. It helps you know what to expect. It helps you know how to maintain your sanity and humility. It helps you develop a thick enough skin to deal with criticism or nasty comments or people being, misunderstanding you, sometimes intentionally or whatever it is. So it's actually been overall very, very positive. I'll tell you that there are two things that people perhaps don't consider. Let me come at it from two different angles. Number one is I get a lot of questions about like, how do you deal with the hate and the criticism? Everyone asks me that. How do you deal with the hate? How do you deal with nasty comments? How do you do even other like social media personalities or YouTubers or whatever? They often ask, there's people who ask me for advice of like, man, like I just got sent this thing. Like, how would you handle this? Whatever, right? People ask me. And I never get asked, how do you deal with all the love? How do you deal with all the love and all the praise and all the admiration and whatever? Because I think because that is 100 times greater than the hate.
Yeah.
And that can also, if you are not properly grounded and you don't have a true level of
that can fuck you up just as bad. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that can F you up and derail your career. And we've seen it happen for people, right? People can become very prideful, very arrogant. You start to, just forget why and how. I'm very, very conscious. Look, I've done everything I've done independently. I haven't had a team. I haven't had a manager. I haven't had a record label, an agent. I haven't had some PR company that's pumped millions of dollars into me in order for me to gain a following. So I'm very aware that my fans, my supporters are my lifeblood, and they always have been. As an independent musician, as a podcaster, as an author, whatever, without the people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, who am I? What am I doing? Who's buying my stuff? Who's supporting me? So I'm super conscious of the fact that like I genuinely like my audience. Yes, there's a small percentage of people who follow me just to hate me, but the vast majority of my audience, I genuinely like. I've done over 25 meetups in over 10 different cities in 5 different countries. I've done meetups in Sydney, Australia. I've done meetups in London, UK. I've done meetups in frickin' South Africa. I've done meetups all across the USA, from California to New York. And these are impromptu. This is not like some planned thing. This is just like, you know what? I'm in the city. Let me connect with some of my supporters. And every single one of them has been awesome. Like I'm like, this is awesome. I just have friends in all these different cities I've never met yet. So for me, I'm truly grateful for that, man. Like I'm very, very grateful. I've been working for half of my life to make a positive dent and impact on people's lives. So anytime that, you know, literally yesterday I was in London, and I just bought some stuff in Marks and Spencer's, like, you know, well-known store here, right? I just bought a couple presents, and I was leaving the store, and I heard someone say Zuby, and I was like, at first I thought I was tripping because I was like, and then I turned around and no.
Turns out I was on acid. Story's over. Yeah, it's a good day.
Yeah, no, not that. Everyone knows I'm a very straight edge, and yeah, but there was like a young, you know, young like black British woman and her mom, and you know, she stopped me and she was like, oh, like, I love your posts, like I watched lots of your videos, like I just love what you're doing, I think it's so important, this and that. And you know, her mom was kind of like, I don't think her mom like knew who I was, and so she was like, you know, I introduced her. But you know, like those little moments, and it honestly, it happens all over the world now. I travel so much, and every single country, every single continent, like I get recognized by some people, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't know. Sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm doing here, but when I think up to that North Star goal,
yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. Right?
Yeah.
If I'm walking in freaking Bangkok, I've never been to Bangkok in my freaking life, and someone comes up to me and is like, yo, man, thanks for what you're doing. Like, I love your message, or you helped me with this. And I think also because I was so vocal during the whole scamdemic era, right? That 2-year period.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you have to remember just how global it was and just how isolated people felt. Right. Yeah. Like when I went to Australia in particular, and even in the States, like the number of people who were just like, dude, thank you. Like, thank you so much for what you're doing. Like they're literally like in that 2-year period, literally, like they were like, I was sharing your posts with my friends. I was screenshotting all of your tweets. Like I was like, they were like, dude, it was so crazy. Like people want to tell me their story. Right. That people come up, you know, like this happened and this happened and this happened. And it can be kind of overwhelming. It can be quite overwhelming. So that's one part that is one. I said I was going to say 2 things. So I think actually that sort of level of it's a bit unnatural in a way. It's very cool, but it can be kind of. I don't think any human being is built to have millions of people know who they are, let alone be like following them. Right? It's a very new and weird. It's a very new and weird thing. So. Every day I'm still kind of managing that.
The strange thing about that too is like traditionally, at least in the last 100 years, it's been like you're a big celebrity and there's like 50 of them, right? That people would recognize. But now with this dissemination of information, the way we have it today, there are, you know, hundreds, thousands of these smaller quasi celebrities like yourself who have to kind of take that on in a meaningful way. And it changes the dynamic massively. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem at all, man. That's absolutely true. There's a much longer tail now to like fame, celebrity, success, like all these different things. And then I'll tell you the one thing that I found hardest. The one thing that I've genuinely found difficult as things have scaled up is just having to accept that there are going to be thousands and perhaps one day millions of people out there who have a really effed up view of who you are and what you believe.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Accepting that you're going to be misunderstood. It is going to happen. Yeah.
Yes. Because, you know, when my account was smaller, you know, when I had a few, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 followers even, I could almost like correct everything in real time. If someone said that I said something that I didn't say, I could correct them. Right. If someone was like spreading some rumor about me that wasn't true, I could correct it. I could put something out there. And then it gets to a level where you're trying to keep doing that and it doesn't scale. Right. You're seeing like, whoa, like this person's saying something crazy here. This person is saying that I said this thing, which I didn't say, or this person is like made up some whole story about me, which is not true. And you know, people can get weird. Right. The bigger you get, you do get these like faction of very strange people who like genuinely like make stuff up out of the sky. I mean, there's rumors that I'm an AI.
He is, by the way.
Right?
We can confirm having talked to him here. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought you were going to go with, I guess AI is the new like lizard people, because there's like a crazy group of people out there that believe that they're all reptilians running the world and crazy shit like that.
Yep. There's rumors that I'm a Freemason. There's rumors that I'm a Satanist, and there's rumors that I'm part of the Illuminati. There's rumors that I'm like controlled by the World Economic Forum, or I'm friends with Klaus Schwab or whatever.
The WEF's got their hands in everything.
Right. That you're some, globalist controlled opposition, controlled by, this person thinks you're controlled by the Zionists. This person thinks I'm controlled by the Republican Party. I'm not even American. This person thinks I'm a CIA There's people who think I'm a CIA operative. I'm like, but it's weird. So at the beginning, you're like seeing all these like genuine conspiracy theories, or these like rumors, or this or that, or people just like completely mischaracterizing your views, even if it's something as simple as like, like the lefties who claim that I hate trans people, or I hate LGBT or whatever. So they took that, from my deadlift stunt, and from the fact that I don't think women can have penises, or you can actually change your sex or whatever. They've now interpolated that to I hate trans people, and then they've interpolated that to I hate LGBT people. And so, you'll see people talking and they're like, oh yeah, he's a homophobe and a white supremacist and a transphobe, or, all their buzzwords and whatever.
Right.
And you're kind of like, on one hand, you don't really care, because you don't, it's not true. But on the other hand, I'm like, I know my heart, right? I'm a kind-hearted person. I don't hate any individual, let alone group of people, let alone based off of some immutable characteristic or whatever, right? Like it's simply not true. And because it's not, it's like, I don't want people to think I believe things that are like that I don't believe, or that I've said things that, so, but it gets to a point where you just have to accept, I just have to accept that there's going to be some people out there who have like a really, really distorted and negative and inaccurate view of me. And that's only going to continue to grow. And I can't do anything about that. And people are going to spread rumors, and people are going to make up their theories, and they're going to like try to convince other people that like I'm all these bad things that I'm not being. And it can be difficult to know, there's a time and a place where you do have to address certain things, but you cannot address everything. I could spend all day, every day, just trying to correct these people, right? Trying to find every rumor, every theory, every whatever, every lie, and try to correct it. And you can't. So I would actually say that, interestingly, that is the thing that I have found over the years to be the most difficult. I've seen it happen with other people. See some of the things people say, people who are like, way more popular than me, right? You see the things people say about Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson or whatever, right? Whether they're Nazi, white supremacist, misogynistic, like whatever crazy anti-vaxxer, like, like people just throw these labels out there very carelessly. And that can definitely get frustrating. There can be times where I'm just like, dude, like, give me a break, man. Why are y'all trying so hard to make me out to be this like evil person, when I'm sure some of you know that it's not even true, but you're just, trying to, I don't know. But
I think people believe fundamentally that you can't get there without some help. Like there's an evil cabal pushing you up, like you didn't do it yourself. Like that's kind of the undertone there.
I also think this applies to people personally. And I was just thinking amen in my head when you shared this about even my own life, not public perception. Just if you are an intellectual person, if you're a thoughtful person who spends a lot of time mulling over ideas and sculpting a worldview, you can want other people, even in your inner circle, that misunderstand your viewpoints, to know everything. I think of a couple examples. One is, I grew up, I'm very thankful for the way I was brought up, but I have very different views and a very different worldview than my inner circle growing up. And when I started to kind of separate from that, some of those viewpoints, I remember that just this compulsion to want to have everybody know the extent to which I've thought this through, the conclusions I've made, why they make sense. And this is something my wife and we kind of went on this journey together, and she would say, like, Daniel, you are not going to be able to fill everyone in on your journey. You're going to have to be content around the holidays, around family members that misunderstand the spot that you're currently in. It's a very hard thing to do, though. And then I think this applies to Bitcoiners, too. People go down this massive rabbit hole. They do all of this research. They gain all of this understanding, and then they go to Thanksgiving, and Uncle Howard thinks you're a clown because you're investing in some vapid, useless crypto bullshit. And you end up wasting the entire night trying to explain to boomer relatives why you're not an idiot. And then you go home at the end and you're like, fuck, I wasted my time and I should have just been with family. There is a time and place to fill people in. Close relationships, those you really love and care for, a message that could impact and change someone's life. But by and large, being cautious and self-controlled about where and when to vomit all over people, just spend time with human beings. Go play tennis, go on a fucking hike, drink a beer with your uncle. He's not going to fully understand who you are, just as you don't fully understand who he is. But it's hard to do. And it's maybe especially for me. I really struggle with this just interpersonally, not to mention on a grander scale that you're alluding to.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. And one other thing I'll just add to this is that it doesn't scale and grow linearly. It's more of like a sort of exponential function. Right. So it's not, going from 10 to 11 to 12. It's like, 10 to 15 to 25 to 50 to 100. And it's it's quite the journey. And I guess something that's weird with me is I know that it's all just going to keep growing. And so I'm excited for that. But I guess I also have some, trepidation and some unknowns of what is that going to be, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, right? Even when I look at a lot of the people I admire, a lot of the people I admire the most are 20 plus years older than me.
Right.
And I'm like, geez, when I'm 37, I'm like, man, when I'm 57, where is this all going to be? Right. How high is this plane going to fly? Like by that time, like, I don't know. Cause I'm not stopping. Right. I'm just on my mission. I'm just going as long as I can. So yeah, I don't know. It's exciting, but, life is an event. Life is very much an adventure, and that's how I view it. So I guess I'm okay, and I'm comfortable in that mild discomfort of not really knowing exactly where this is all going to go.
For sure. And I honestly hope that plane flies high, man, because the kind of things you disseminate are just what the world needs. They really are. Like just being real, just telling people what you actually think, and that it agrees with my philosophy in general just is good. I wanted to ask you, I mean, you're very intellectually wound. We're going to let you go here, but I want to hear, I like to hear from people like, what is a book that you'd recommend? Like something that you really thought was good, endearing, really kind of helps you along your path.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give people 4 books.
Oh, 4.
That
Sweet.
have, I'll give 4 books that have massively influenced my thinking. I read a ton of books, but these are ones where I was like, okay, this has caused like a genuine shift in my mindset or understanding. First of all, the Holy Bible, got to put that out there, number 1. And the next 3 are not so spiritual. One of them is The Righteous Mind by Jonathon Haidt. I recommend that book to so many people. I must have helped him sell a lot of copies of that book. But The Righteous Mind by Jonathon Haidt. Okay. Regardless of your religious and political views, if you want to understand why people hold different ones on like a real understanding level, and you want to be able to empathize with people, if you're a conservative and you feel like you don't really get liberals, or you're a liberal and you don't really get conservatives, or you're a religious person and you're a little bit confused by those atheists, or you're an atheist and you're like, man, how can anyone believe in God or whatever? This book will really help you to just understand people better. It'll help you have much better conversations, especially with those whom you disagree with on these fundamental things. So massively recommend that.
It's going to go to the top of my list there.
Yeah. Must read. It'll change your mind. It'll like,
I'm ordering all of these as soon as we get off this.
Okay.
Well, I have a Bible, so I don't have to order that one.
Awesome. Another book is called The Millionaire Fast Lane by MJ DeMarco. So that book genuinely did help me to achieve that goal. The general concept of the book is having 3 lanes in life. You've got the sidewalk, you've got the slow lane, and you've got the fast lane. Majority of people are on the sidewalk or in the slow lane. And if you stay in the slow lane, then you're really, really going to struggle to make $1 million or pounds, at least any time when you're relatively young. But if you think and work and operate in a different way, then you can unlock that elusive fast lane. I think I've read that book like 3 times, and it genuinely helped me to like shift the way that I think and way I operate so that I can like just multiply everything that I do. So that's a fantastic book, especially for entrepreneurs or anyone who's remotely entrepreneurial minded. It's an easy read as well. It's not like a super long book.
Okay.
And the third book, which I haven't actually read this one for a couple of years now, but I remember, I don't know if I even read it. I listened to the audiobook, and I like listening to the audiobook because it kind of pumps you up. And that is the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone.
Okay.
That's actually the book that made me change my North Star goal from positively inspiring 1 million people to 10 million people. And it's the reason why once I know I've hit 10, it's going to go to 100. So a book called the 10X Rule, like if you just need like motivation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
If you need motivation and just like, okay, yeah, I'd say those are the books that, of all the hundreds that I've read, they really kind of shifted a gear for me and helped me to see the world and actually operate in a way that I think has benefited me and a lot of other people downstream. So check those out.
Very cool.
Zuby, thank you for your time, man.
I want to be just presumptuous for 1 second here. I know we're already long, but give us your just real quick Bitcoin take right now. They seem to be as quick or as long as you want. We didn't talk at all about it, which is fine. Actually enjoyed taking a little break, but it's kind of an exciting time to be a Bitcoiner. Any kind of parting thoughts on the orange coin here?
Yeah, sure. Well, dude, I think we're at the early stages of a massive bull market in terms of the actual
certainly feels
market
like it
itself. It sounds like we got into Bitcoin around a similar time. I'm 6 year. My 6-year anniversary would have been a few weeks ago. So
pretty close.
I jumped in on the tail end of the 2017 bull cycle, and that's when I got involved. And then ever since then, I've just been learning and stashing and stacking. So,
yep.
Look, long term, I think that Bitcoin is going to do for money what the internet has done for information and connection. I think that we are still ludicrously early. I think that, again, similar to you guys, I'm past the point of after 6 years, I'm tired of like trying to convince people about Bitcoin. If someone is genuinely curious about it they want to know and they don't understand the fundamentals or whatever, totally happy to explain it. But, if I tweet about Bitcoin and someone is there calling it a scam or saying that it's not backed by it, the usual objections. I'm just like, you know what, bro, believe whatever you want to believe. Like, I don't really care. I'm just doing what I do. I said something about Bitcoin the other day and someone's like, oh, Bitcoin is a bad investment. And I'm like,
you're a bad investment. That's what you said.
Look, I just don't know how you can like take the highest performing asset of the decade and then with a straight face say it's a bad.
Yeah.
Well, say that it's a bad investment. It's one thing to say that like you don't get it or you don't really believe in it or even that you think gold is a better store of value, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
But to say that it's like, I'm just like, that is just objectively wrong. If something has gone up by like 100,000% or like whatever ungodly number, right, Bitcoin has gone up by, right? How can you say that it's a bad investment? You're just
like, lazy. It's intellectually lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intellectually lazy. But look, man, you can only. My job is to awaken sleeping wolves, not sheep, and that goes for everything.
I like that.
That was my mentality during the whole pandemic period. I was like, look, man, I'm here to awaken the other sleeping wolves or other sleeping lions. But no matter what I do, no matter what I say, there's going to be a percentage of people who it completely falls flat for, or they fight against it with all their will. And I'm just like, hey, like, all I can do is do my best. In everything that I do, all I can do is do my best. I cannot win over everybody. I cannot change everybody's mind. I cannot get everyone on board with any aspect of my belief system. And I'm okay with that. As long as I can nudge some people in a positive direction and that there's some percentage of people who it resonates with and it can help in some way, then that's my job done. And I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, it's resonating, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Nice one, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure, man.
It was fun.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Specifically not happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Zuby.
No, guys. It's been great to talk.
Take care.
Take care.